You're listening to episode 165 of the Tennis Files podcast, 6 Ways to Attack the Net. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tennis Files podcast. My name is Mirban Aranshad, a former Division I college tennis player, and on the show, I interview the world's top pros, coaches, and experts to help you improve your tennis game. But today, I actually have another solo episode for you. I often kind of intersperse these with my interviews, which I enjoy a lot, but I also enjoy connecting with you one-on-one through these solo episodes. And as you have heard in the intro, we're going to talk about 6 ways to attack the net. And to give you a bit of background about me, hopefully to inspire you, especially those of you who may not be very well versed with attacking the net, or you're not really sure of the best ways to do it, or you just simply think that you don't have the ability to. I have always been a baseliner ever since I first started playing tennis. And moving forward and attacking the net has definitely not been natural for me. In fact, I used to grind away from the baseline mercilessly, and I never would move forward unless I was pretty much drop shotted. That was basically the only time that I would move up to the net. And so my entire game until I was probably in the 18s age division was predicated upon reacting to my opponent's shots and then just making as many balls as I could. So I was just a wall, and I was not missing very much at all and forcing my opponents to miss shots. And, I would rip forehands when I could, but I never really thought about strategy much. I never really thought about taking advantage of short balls and coming to the net. And it was finally when I got to college at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, where my head coach, Keith Puryear, who was actually my very first interview on the Tennis Files podcast, episode number 2, many years ago, he showed me the fundamentals and the importance of attacking the net when the opportunity presents itself. And I vividly remember a match against our conference rivals, Stony Brook. We were in the America East Conference at the time, where I followed the directions of my head coach, Keith, and also my assistant coach, Matt Bilger, who was on episode 43 of the podcast. As you can see, I stay loyal to my coaches. They told me to concentrate on recognizing short balls and approaching the net on those balls instead of hanging out, staying back at the baseline, staying content. And the reason for this was to create pressure on my opponent. And I remember following their advice and pressuring my opponent into quite a few passing shot errors. Either that or me somehow making the volley, because back then, frankly, my volleys weren't that great. But yeah, it ended up with me winning the match because of following the strategy put in place by my coaches, which was very valuable. And both my coaches and I were obviously very pleased with the executed game plan against one of our probably 2 biggest conference rivals, Stony Brook. Yeah, that was pretty much the main one. There was another school up in New York that was really tough there. But I tell you this story because it is really important, and it's important to brag about my wins. I mean, it's important to show you how even if you're not used to attacking the net, you can and should learn how to do it if you want to be more successful. But the other school that I meant to say was Binghamton, so I didn't want to leave them out. So Stony Brook and Binghamton were the toughest ones that we played against. But back to my point that I'm making now is that if your opponents know that you aren't going to attack the net, then when they are in trouble, let's say you push them very wide outside of the doubles line, they're still going to be comfortable and they can hit even a lower quality ball back in the court and still be in decent shape. In fact, I remember playing certain opponents that will go unnamed, actually one of them who improved a lot since then, but I knew that, this individual was never going to attack the net. So when I was pushed wide, I was very comfortable. I would just hit a slice and be able to get back in the court with no pressure. But compare that situation with being out of position and knowing that your opponent is going to be rushing the net and taking time away from you and volleying your shot, which pretty much gives you half as much time to recover. Think about that. Think about also as another comparison, like you hitting against the wall way much closer, right? Like the ball's coming back quicker. So it's the same thing. If an individual is hitting your shot from the baseline versus hitting your shot from the net, you have way less time to recover. So attacking the net creates pressure, it creates errors, and it's a game changer. And with all this in mind, I now want to present to you 6 ways to attack the net, which I think are pretty simple, but having these concepts in mind will help you play more aggressively. And so the first way to attack the net is to attack the net off of approachable short balls. And here's how I judge approachable short balls, okay? The main factors I think about are how deep or conversely how short they bounce into the court on your side, and also how fast and how much spin do these balls have when you're receiving them. And there's also another factor that we should consider, which I'm going to talk about in point number 2, but we'll focus on how deep or short the balls bounce and how fast and how much spin they have. And so some examples of these approachable short balls when you're trying to judge them is, let's say the ball bounces at the service line, it's fairly slow, there's not much spin on it. This is an obvious short ball that you must attack and go to the net on. And let's compare that with maybe the ball bounces halfway in between the service line and the baseline, and there's pretty heavy spin on that ball. It's coming in at a moderate speed, then I probably wouldn't consider that a very approachable short ball. And then you have kind of gray area situations. The ball bounces several feet past the service line. Then you have to really consider how much spin, how much speed is on that ball. And, if the ball is floating in this scenario, then you want to attack it and come to the net. But if it's a much heavier ball, obviously you will think of like, Rafa or Jack Sock, even though they hit it shorter, sometimes it's really, really heavy. And so it may not be the best ball to approach the net with. And then you also want to now go into the second consideration when attacking the net, which is looking at your opponent and whether they're out of position. And in my latest approach shot strategy YouTube video, which you can check out at tennisfiles.com/YouTube, that's tennisfiles.com/YouTube, there was one point in particular that I can remember where the player hit an approach shot when he was A, behind the baseline, and B, his opponent was chilling in the middle of the court, just ready for anything. And this is a bad time to approach the net. In this case, the individual, again, he was behind the baseline, he hit a shot, and then he decided to just charge the net, and his opponent was in a great position to then go just move a few steps, really, because he was in the middle of the court, and move a few steps to his left, I believe, as a righty, and hit a backhand, forcing the player to hit a half volley at his back foot. So that was not great because the player wasn't able to be in a very offensive position, and conversely, his opponent who was hitting the passing shot was in a very offensive position. So consider where your opponent is on the court when you're deciding whether to attack the net. And so the more the opponent is out of position, let's say near or outside the double sideline, then the wider range of balls that you can approach the net from. So if we look at the first consideration I mentioned with the how deep and short the ball bounces and how fast and how much spin the ball has, balls that land a little bit deeper with, some spin and some pace can still be treated as a more approachable ball to the net if the opponent is out of position, because obviously you're still at a very advantageous position in comparison to your opponent, so you can hit the ball, get up to the net, and then when that player is now sprinting to hit the passing shot and won't have a very powerful base to hit the shot on unless they're an amazing athlete, then you will be able to get that ball and then cut the time off from your opponent reacting to your volley. So if your opponent is way off the court, you should get to the net off I'd say a majority of shots, unless you are somehow pushed back or in a very bad position from their shot. So actually, obviously they would have had to hit a really good shot at that point. All right. So the third way to attack the net, and maybe there are others out there that I don't cover today. And in that case, feel free to email me or leave a comment or whatnot. Mehrban@tennisfiles.com. That's MEHRBAN@tennisfiles.com. The third way to attack the net is to serve and volley. And I know a lot of you out there are uncomfortable with it. I was also uncomfortable with it for a while. I would actually try to serve and volley and then brick a few volleys and then just say, the heck with this. People are watching me and I don't want to look bad. However, I finally overcame that issue, that fear that we all have to push past the element of fear. And then on the other side are great things. I said, you know what? I don't care what people are thinking. I'm going to serve and volley over and over again, and I'm going to get the skill down, and it's going to be worth, just imagining that, and a lot of times we think that people are judging us, when we're playing, but in reality, most of them don't care, or they're just paying attention to their own games or whatever. So it's best that you practice the skills you need to, irrespective of extraneous factors and distractions. So I kept serving and volleying, and I've been able to use this play at critical junctures now because I practiced it. So, but serving and volleying is an obvious way to attack the net as a server, and we need to make sure that we hit the right serves to get us makeable and high percentage volleys. So that's really important. When you're serving, you're thinking, how can I set myself up for that volley? You're not, going for the ace or whatever when you're trying to serve and volley. I mean, sure, it's great, but that's how you should be thinking as to how can I set up a very advantageous volley that can win me the point or, get me set up for another volley that will then be the winner perhaps. So here are some considerations when we are serving and volleying. One is, what is your opponent's weaker shot? For example, do they have a worse backhand or a worse forehand return? And one is, do they tend to slice their backhand return a lot? Because obviously, most slices, especially at the amateur level, are not these, super biting, like razor thin, low to the net, top of the net tape type of offensive slices. A lot of times they're going to be popped up. So if you can hit a fairly effective heavy serve to the backhand perhaps, or whatever side that they slice, then you can set yourself up with a great volley. And also another consideration when you're serving is, how close am I getting to the net off of my serves before I'm able to hit a volley? So when I was discussing this, and my friend Victor brought this up one time when we were playing doubles, if you find that you're hitting your volleys when you serve and volley from behind the service line when you rush the net after your serve, you may actually want to slow down your serve and hit more spin on it. And please don't confuse slowing down your serve with swinging slower on your serve, but you always want to swing fast, keep your swing speed high on your serve, but instead you're hitting a kick serve or a slice serve, and this will give you additional time to get closer to the net. This is similar in one of my previous 7 do's and don'ts for single strategy to when you're in trouble, when you're rallying, you're playing a match and you're out of the court or out of position. Rather than, a great choice would be to hit a looping, top spinny shot back, because that loopiness, that height, gives you extra time to get back into position. Same thing as well, hitting a slice. I prefer hitting that loopy shot if you can, but either works. I think you get a little more time, the higher you can hit the ball, but so it's the same concept here, like think of maybe your first serve, and this time you, instead of smacking a flat serve and then the ball whizzing by you while you're still running, and you're at, still like in the middle of the service line and the baseline, you hit a heavy kick serve, you hit a slice serve, that equates to less MPHs, but then it gives you just that extra time to get closer to the net so that you're not hitting a bunch of half volleys. At your feet, you're hitting more offensive volleys closer to the net. So think about that. And obviously, you don't have to go right away to serving, all exclusively kicks or slices. But if you find that you're getting caught with the returns, farther back than you want, then change the serve up. Also think about and consider, what are the opponent's return tendencies, almost said tendencies. What are the opponent's return tendencies on each side? Each side being the forehand and backhand. So, obviously when you're serving, you want to think, oh, this person usually returns cross court, or they've been going for the backhand down the line a lot. So that'll help you in deciding where you should be moving, once you serve, or where you should be trying to anticipate the ball going. I also really like the serve wide and then attacking the net when you serve and volley. That's always a great play, because when you can serve to the deuce side as a righty and the ad side as a lefty, or switch it up, obviously reverse it if you're a lefty server, then your next volley, you can volley into the open court, and then they're running, and that's a very tough volley. You see that a lot. That's my favorite play to throw in. I obviously, as a baseliner, don't serve and volley when I'm playing singles a ton, but I will do it on occasion on certain points, and it will be a very helpful play. And sometimes as I mentioned, you'll catch the opponent just hitting a little bit of a lazy slice backhand, perhaps, or a forehand, usually the backhand, and then you can pick it off easily at the net, provided you have the proper volleying fundamentals, or if you don't, but you can just get it in there. So hopefully the former. And okay, so that is number 3. The fourth way to attack the net that not enough players use, in my opinion, is the slice approach shot. And with the slice approach shot, you can keep the ball low, and it can be skidding if you have a good slice. And this way, it'll be much harder for your opponent to hit the passing shot, and they'll have to hit up on the ball if you are able to execute a good slice approach shot. And this will give you a much better chance of hitting a more comfortable volley, instead of, the individual being able to crack a forehand or a backhand where the ball is significantly above the net. Pretty much. I was going to say waist level, but obviously, the higher it is, the easier they can hit a more offensive shot usually. And so it'll also be much harder for them to hit a dipper. That's pretty much just like a fairly heavy topspin ball that dips way low below the net once it crosses the net. And the slice approach shot is particularly effective against extreme grips. If you play against me, please don't do that. Thank you. But it's much harder to hit a pass off of a low ball, especially for these extreme grips. If you've seen, sometimes players have to, totally change their swing path and do the buggy whip in order to get the ball up sometimes for some of these extreme grips off of low balls. So I do like the slice approach shot. It's also a change up to the normal shot that players are receiving, whether it's somewhat spinny or flat or whatever, when they're trying to hit a passing shot. So slice approach shot is a great choice. Another fundamental that I actually saw a couple times, and again, if you go to tennisfiles.com/YouTube, you can check out this approach shot video. I have to warn you, it is about half an hour, which you can tell I was enjoying it, and I analyzed 8 points from a 4.5 singles match. But what I recognize a couple times in that video is the player was actually approaching cross court, and generally, it's not the best choice. The down the line approach shot is the percentage play, the smart play, the vast majority of the time, because approaching cross court gives your opponent a wide open court. I mean, let's try to visualize. Let's say I'm a righty and I'm in the near court and I have a short ball, and then I choose to go cross court, especially the more I am to the deuce side, to the deuce alley, let's say. When I hit a cross court approach shot, now, once the player is able to reach that ball, I mean, all they have to do is just basically bunt it straight, bunt it in the open court. They have such a wide amount of open court if you approach cross court. Now let's contrast that with you getting this same shot, this forehand on the deuce side, short ball, and then you approach down the line. Now you've got that line covered, and then you can easily, split step at the appropriate time right before the ball is being hit, and then you can move towards the cross court because you're already giving them a very small space to hit on down the line, and then you can anticipate them going cross court, like I said. So it's a much more high percentage play, and of course, now they have to hit a much more sharp and wider cross court pass in order to pass you. So yeah, if you compare what I just said between those two scenarios, you obviously would want to approach down the line. I will say though, if the opponent has a much weaker side, you can feel free to hit the approach shot on that side. So if you just know that, oh, my opponent has a much weaker backhand, but I have to hit it cross court, if you know that they're going to cough up a floaty shot or floaty pass that you can just volley away, then you can feel free to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think that the down the line is the safe choice. So you can just kind of simplify it for yourself, give yourself that rule, and then you can deviate from it if you're finding that it's not working out as well for you and you're somehow getting past really easily using that formula. So that is number 5. And then the 6th way, I didn't want to forget my doubles bros and sisses. It's kind of a weird way to term that, but just wipe that from your memory. I didn't want to ignore the doubles players out there and leave them out in the cold in this episode. So although, some of these strategies I mentioned do apply to doubles, but I want you to use doubles plays. And when I say doubles plays, I'm primarily talking about the poach, the I formation, and also the cross two and returning. So when you're a returner, your partner who is at the service line can signal that they're going to cross, and you can affirm, and then you can do that as well. But I love these plays. They're so effective. I mean, you've got the classic poach where you're signaling to your server partner that you're going to cross, and then you pick off the return. And I formation is just wonderful as well. It's highly versatile. You can call, of course, you're going to call where the serve is being hit. You should always do that. But also, more importantly, as importantly, where you're going to be if you're the net player and your partner's serving, you can move to the left, you can move to the right. Yeah, I mean, you can even stay in the middle if you want. And these are great ways to just be very active at net and attack the net and cause chaos, as my friend Ian Westerman would say, and just be disruptive. And that way your opponents will really not know where they should be returning. They don't know where you're going to be. So that's a great way to do it. You'll notice that I didn't really mention the Australian. The Australian is not so much an attacking the net sort of play because, I mean, you're both going to be on the same side of the court, and then normally the server is the one that is going to move to the opposite side. So let's say you're serving to the ad side. Your partner at the net is also going to be on the ad side. And then once you serve it, then you move as a server to the ad side. So you have that beautiful forehand that you can work off of. Then you're in this down the line pattern. And then you can do a few things, obviously, after that. However, you can do a form of maybe a reverse Australian, I'd say, where let's take the ad side serve and you and your partner are both on the ad side, but then instead of you going to that ad side, your net partner is going to cross it back to that normal spot where he or she would be. So then that way you could be a little more active in attacking the net. But on the whole, the poach, the affirmation, the return poach plays, and the reverse Australian are all great plays, doubles plays that you can use to attack the net. So those are the 6 ways to attack the net. And yeah, I'll just review them again. Number 1 is to attack the net off of approachable short balls, judging the type of ball that you're getting, the speed spin, and the depth. Number 2, the second way to attack the net is to attack when your opponent is out of position. Number 3 is to attack the net by serving and volleying. Number 4 is to attack the net with slice approach shots. Number 5 is to attack the net by approaching down the line or sometimes at the opponent's weakness. And the 6th way to attack the net is with doubles plays. So that is all for these 6 ways to attack the net. And it was a pleasure to bring this to you. And I appreciate your support. And I would really, really appreciate it if you found this podcast episode helpful. If you would subscribe to the Tennis Files podcast if you haven't already. We have a ton of subscribers, and they do this because to support the show, which I really appreciate, but also because the episodes are downloaded immediately to your podcast app of choice. If you're on an iPhone and you're using Apple Podcasts, or you're on Samsung Galaxy, and for example, an Android phone, and then you use Google Podcasts or Spotify, and you subscribe, then the episodes will immediately be downloaded as soon as they're published to those apps. And and it also helps the show a lot. The visibility of the show is increased, and that's my mission, is to try to reach as many people as possible with what I believe is high quality tennis information and advice and strategies and tactics. So really would appreciate you subscribing to the Tennis Files podcast. And I also would like to leave you with a quote, as I often love to do at the end of the show. And this one is by Eleanor Roosevelt. And Eleanor said, "With the new day comes new strength and new thoughts." And I love this quote because, we obviously have tough days and weeks and months, sometimes years, but every day is a new opportunity to do something great, to give back, to work on your strengths and your weaknesses, and to improve your tennis game, of course. And so that's why I really love the mornings, because it's a new day and I can start off the day right with my morning routine and, exercise, meditation, a cold shower, and reading and journaling, and accomplishing things. So I really love that quote there. And you can check out the show notes of this episode at tennisfiles.com/165. So we'll have a few links for you there, a few resources for you. And I also, again, would encourage you to check out my YouTube channel for the approach shot strategy video, where I analyze 8 points from a 4.5 singles match. Specifically, of course, their approach shots, their strategy, and how they handle it. And, I give you some pointers on what they've done well with those approach shots and also what they haven't done so well. And I also, comment about other shots during the points, but obviously concentrate on the approach shots. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And thanks again for listening to this episode. We've got some really great interviews coming up. I'm really excited to present those to you. I'm also going to be presenting on a live stream with my great friend Peter Freeman from Crunch Time Coaching on Friday, this Friday anyway, in September, late September. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, if you want to join my community, my subscriber list, where I send out frequently send out tips and pieces of advice and alert you when I have new podcasts and live streams and, a bunch of amazing free content and other content, premium content and so forth, then you can go to tennisfiles.com and simply subscribe with your first name and email address. So, alrighty then. What is that? Was that The Mask? I can't even remember. But anyways, forget movies. I'm the worst at citing movies. I didn't really watch many movies when I was a kid. I just played tennis and games and other things, but that's TMI there. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Tennis Files podcast. And yeah, that is it for this week. So always take the right approach to attacking the net. That was a hidden pun for you there, which I just revealed. I can tell I'm blabbering a little too much at the end here, but it was really fun doing this episode, and I hope you took something away from it. So definitely choose one or two of these. As I often like to say, you listen to episodes, but you don't want to just listen and then not act, right? So you want to take away at least one big point, 1, 2, or 3 that will make the biggest impact, and then choose one of those and work on them intentionally in your next practice, and then eventually your matches. And that is the way that you will truly improve, by using your information and then acting upon it. All right. That's it for episode 165, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you on episode 166 very, very soon. This is Mirabon Aranshad signing out. Have an awesome week.